The bell above the door let out a thin, bright chime as Maya Carter stepped into Sunrise Diner. Morning light slanted across the vinyl booths in flat, familiar stripes. The air smelled like burnt coffee and old griddle grease, the kind of smell that had soaked into the walls over 30 years. She walked to the counter, set her bag on the stool, and waited. Apple pie, light sugar, and black coffee, she said. Kelly was in the middle of a rush. 3 tables needed refills. The grill timer was going off. And someone at booth 7 kept waving a napkin dispenser like a flag. She grabbed a tray with both hands, pivoted hard on one heel, and swung toward the counter. Her wrist tilted. The coffee mug tipped. The edge of the metal tray caught Maya square across the cheekbone. The diner went still. Maya's head snapped to the side. The mug hit the floor and shattered. Coffee spread in a dark, uneven circle across the tile. She touched her face. Her fingers came away clean, but the skin under her eye was already starting to swell. "Watch where you're going." Kelly's voice was loud, sharp, defensive. Her face flushed red. Maya pressed a napkin to her cheek and looked at her. "You just hit me." Her tone was low, controlled, and impossibly clear. Around them, forks stopped moving. Someone set down a glass. The hum of the diner had dropped to nothing. "Don't make this into something it's not," Kelly snapped. "If you don't like how we do things here, you can." Maya let the napkin fall to the counter. She reached into her bag, pulled out her wallet, and placed a silver-edged employee card on the surface between them. The name engraved across the front read, Maya Carter. She spoke each word like a stone dropping into water. "My dad owns this place." Kelly's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Pete, the shift manager, had been standing near the register. He'd seen the whole thing. He raised one hand, calm but firm. "Code Amber. Separate both parties. Medical first." Rosa, the line cook, pushed through the kitchen door. She pulled a privacy screen from behind the host stand and set it up near the corner booth. She came back with a plastic bag of ice wrapped in a clean towel and a small first aid kit. Maya took the ice without a word and pressed it to her cheek. A customer in the far booth had her phone out. She looked up, met Pete's eyes, and said quietly, "I got the last part on video." Pete nodded. "We'll need that." The glass door reflected 4 faces, one injured, one frozen, one managing, and a room full of witnesses. The diner was no longer just a place that served breakfast. It had become a scene. "We're going to handle this the right way," Maya said. Her voice was steady, but her hand shook slightly as she adjusted the ice pack. Kelly swallowed. The bell above the door chimed again as someone else walked in, then stopped. The sunlight had shifted, but every pair of eyes in the room stayed locked forward. Pete moved to the host stand and flipped the small chalkboard sign to read, "Seating limited, please wait." He pulled his phone from his pocket, scrolled to a saved contact, and pressed call. It rang twice. "Frank Carter," the voice on the other end said. "It's Pete. We have a situation." Maya sat in the corner booth behind the privacy screen. Rosa brought her a glass of water and a clean towel. The ice pack was already damp with condensation. Maya set it on the table and tilted her head back, eyes closed. "You want me to call someone?" Rosa asked. Maya shook her head. "Not yet." Kelly stood near the kitchen door, hands at her sides. Pete had told her to stay visible but not to serve anyone. She watched the customers pretend not to stare. Her heartbeat was loud in her ears. She hadn't meant to hit anyone. It had been an accident. But the look on Maya's face, the silence that followed made it clear that intent didn't erase impact. Pete returned with a clipboard and a pen. He sat across from Maya and opened a blank incident report form. "I need to document what happened. Time, location, who was present, what was said. Are you okay to do this now?" "Yes," Maya said. He wrote the date at the top, March 14th. Time of incident, 9:40, 2 a.m. Location, front counter. He wrote Maya's name, then Kelly's. He noted the presence of Rosa, the customer with the phone, and 2 other patrons at nearby tables. "Describe what happened," Pete said. Maya spoke without opening her eyes. "I ordered pie and coffee. Kelly was carrying a tray. She turned and the tray hit my face. The mug fell. She yelled at me. I identified myself. That's when you stepped in." Pete wrote it down word for word. "Did you lose consciousness at any point?" "No." "Blurred vision? Nausea?" "No. Just swelling and some pain." He made a note. "We're going to need photos of the injury. With your permission." Maya opened her eyes. "Do it." Rosa took 3 pictures with her phone, one straight on, one from the side, one with the ice pack removed to show the redness spreading under Maya's eye. She sent them to Pete's work email immediately and deleted them from her device. The customer with the video approached the screen. Her name was Diane. She was a regular, usually came in on Thursdays for the lunch special. I have footage, she said. Starts right after the tray hit. You want me to send it somewhere? Pete gave her an email address. She uploaded the file on the spot, then showed him the timestamp, 9:40, 2 a.m., matching the incident report. Thank you, Pete said. We'll need a written statement too, if you're willing. Diane nodded. I'll type it up tonight. Kelly was still standing by the kitchen. She wanted to apologize. She wanted to explain. But Pete had told her not to approach Maya, and every instinct she had said that anything she said now would only make it worse. Pete walked to the office in the back and checked the security system. The diner had 4 cameras. Camera 3 covered the front counter. Camera 1 covered the entrance. He pulled the footage from 9:30 to 10 a.m. and saved it to a USB drive. He labeled the drive with a piece of masking tape. Incident 03 to 14, Cam 1 and 3. Then he locked it in the desk drawer. By 10:15, Officer Diaz arrived. He was a community liaison, not a patrol officer, but he'd been nearby when the call came in. He stepped into the diner, nodded to Pete, and asked to speak with Maya first. She met him at a booth near the back. He sat across from her, notebook open. I'm not here to make any arrests right now, he said. I'm here to document what happened and make sure you know your options. Maya told him the same story she'd told Pete. Officer Diaz wrote it down, asked follow-up questions, and confirmed the contact information for witnesses. He explained that she could file a formal complaint if she chose to. That it could be treated as a misdemeanor assault. That she could also pursue a civil claim. I'll decide after I talk to my father, Maya said. Officer Diaz closed his notebook. Fair enough. If you need medical attention, go now. Don't wait. I will. He stood, spoke briefly with Pete, and left. The diner felt quieter after he was gone, but the tension hadn't lifted. It had just settled deeper into the room. Frank Carter arrived 20 minutes later. He was a broad-shouldered man in his early 60s, with gray in his beard and a limp from an old knee injury. He walked through the front door and looked around. His eyes found Maya first. She stood up. I'm fine. You don't look fine, Frank said. I'll get it checked. But I'm fine. He turned to Pete. Show me everything. They went to the office. Pete pulled up the footage. Frank watched in silence as the tray swung into frame and connected with Maya's face. He watched Kelly yell. He watched Maya set down her employee card. He didn't say a word until the video ended. Who else has seen this? Just me, Rosa, and now you, Pete said. I saved it to a USB and locked it up. Officer Diaz knows we have it. Frank nodded. Good. Keep it that way until we know what we're dealing with. He went back out to the dining room and stood in front of Kelly. She looked at him and her throat went tight. You're suspended with pay, Frank said. Effective immediately. Go home. Don't talk to anyone about this. If you need a lawyer, get one. If you want a union rep, call them. But do not come back here until I tell you to. Kelly opened her mouth, then closed it. She untied her apron, folded it, and set it on the counter. She left through the back door without looking at anyone. Frank walked over to Maya. I'm not handling this as your father, he said. I'm handling it as the owner. That means I'm stepping back and letting Pete and our attorney manage the process. If you want something different, you need to tell me now. Maya looked at him for a long moment. I want to be treated like any other customer. Then that's what we'll do. He turned to Pete. Call our lawyer. Set up a meeting for this afternoon. And get that USB drive to them today. By noon, the diner had returned to a strange, muted version of normal. The privacy screen was folded up. The broken mug had been swept away. Customers came and went, but everyone who'd been there that morning knew something had shifted. Rosa stood at the grill, flipping eggs and watching the room. She'd worked at Sunrise for 11 years. She'd seen fights, walkouts, health inspections, and 2 ownership changes. But she'd never seen anything like this. She thought about the sound the tray made when it hit Maya's face. The way the room had gone silent. The way Kelly had yelled first, defended herself first, before even checking if Maya was hurt. Rosa had seen that before. Not here, not exactly. But she'd seen it. The assumption that someone else was in the wrong. The refusal to apologize. The way power worked when people didn't even realize they had it. She cracked another egg on the griddle and let the white spread thin. The yolk stayed centered, bright and unbroken. She flipped it carefully and plated it with toast. The order ticket said Booth 3. She handed it to the server and went back to the grill. The USB drive sat in Frank's office, sealed with a red evidence sticker. The timestamp on the footage was 9:42 a.m. The timestamp on the point-of-sale system receipt was 9:41 a.m. Diane's video started at 9:42 and 17 seconds. Everything lined up. Frank met with the attorney that afternoon. Her name was Miss Pruitt, and she'd been handling employment and liability cases for 20 years. She watched the footage twice, read the incident report, and reviewed Officer Diaz's notes. "This is assault," she said. "Legally, it doesn't matter if it was an accident. The question is whether the response was appropriate, and whether there's a pattern of behavior." "There's no pattern," Frank said. "Kelly's worked here for 3 years. No complaints." "That we know of," Miss Pruitt said. "But that's not the only issue. Your daughter was struck by an employee. She identified herself. The employee responded with hostility. That's a hostile work environment, even if Maya wasn't on shift. And if this goes public, the optics are bad." Frank leaned back in his chair. "So what do we do?" "You investigate. Fully. You interview witnesses. You review policy. You make sure your staff knows how to de-escalate. And you decide whether Kelly stays or goes. But you do it transparently, and you do it fast." Frank nodded. "What about Maya? She's the victim. She gets to decide how far this goes. If she wants to press charges, that's her right. If she wants a civil settlement, you negotiate. But you don't pressure her, and you don't protect Kelly just because it's convenient." "I'm not protecting anyone," Frank said. Miss Pruitt closed her folder. "Good. Then let's make sure everyone knows that." By the end of the day, Frank had made 3 decisions. First, Kelly would remain suspended pending a full investigation. Second, Pete would be given temporary authority to manage staff interviews and policy review. Third, Maya would be kept informed of every step, but she would not be involved in the decision-making process. It was the only way to keep it fair. That night, Maya went to an urgent care clinic. The doctor examined her face, took pictures, and filled out a standard injury report. No fracture. No concussion. Just soft tissue trauma and bruising that would take a week to heal. The doctor handed her the report in a sealed envelope. "You'll want this if you're filing anything legal." Maya took it. "Thank you." She drove home and sat in her car for 10 minutes before going inside. Her face ached. Her hands were still shaking. But more than anything, she felt tired. Not from the injury. From the weight of what came next. She thought about Kelly's face when she'd yelled. The way her voice had cracked. The way she'd looked at Maya like she was the problem. Maya had spent her whole life being careful. Being calm. Being twice as good so she could be seen as half as competent. And it hadn't mattered. Not in that moment. Not when someone decided she was in the way. She went inside and put the injury report on the kitchen table. Then she made herself tea and sat in the dark, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. Tomorrow, she would decide what came next. Tonight, she just needed to breathe. The next morning, a post appeared online. Someone had uploaded Diane's video with the caption, "Employee at Sunrise Diner assaults customer. Then finds out her dad owns the place." It had 200 shares by noon. By evening, it had 1,500. The comments section split into 2 camps. One side said Kelly should be fired immediately. The other said Maya was using her privilege to destroy someone's life over an accident. Neither side had the full story. Frank saw the post and called Miss Pruitt. "It's already out there." "Then you respond," she said. "Short statement. Prioritize the victim. Acknowledge the investigation. Don't name anyone. Don't speculate." Frank drafted the statement himself. It went up on the diner's website and social media accounts at 6 p.m. "We are aware of an incident that occurred at our location on March 14th. The safety and well-being of our customers and staff are our top priorities. We are conducting a thorough investigation and cooperating fully with local authorities. Out of respect for everyone involved, we will not be commenting further at this time." It didn't stop the speculation. But it kept the focus where it needed to be. Pete spent the next 2 days interviewing staff. He spoke with Rosa first. She told him what she'd seen. The tray. The yell. The way Kelly had looked more angry than sorry. "She didn't check if Maya was okay," Rosa said. "She just got defensive." "Has Kelly ever done anything like this before?" Pete asked. "Not that I've seen. But she gets stressed. And when she's stressed, she snaps." Pete made a note. He spoke with 2 other servers, the line cook who'd been on prep that morning, and the dishwasher. Everyone said the same thing. Kelly worked hard, She was fast. But she didn't handle pressure well. And when things went wrong, she blamed other people. Pete pulled Kelly's file. 3 years of employment. No formal complaints. But 2 write-ups for snapping at customers during busy shifts. Both times, she'd apologized and moved on. This time was different. Assistant District Attorney Nguyen contacted Frank on the 4th day. She'd reviewed Officer Diaz's report and wanted to know if Maya planned to press charges. Frank gave her Maya's number. That's her decision. Maya met with ADA Nguyen the following afternoon. They sat in a small office at the municipal building. Nguyen laid out the options. Simple assault, a misdemeanor. Possible fine, possible probation, possible suspended sentence. Or a plea deal, community service, anger management, and a formal apology. What do you want? Nguyen asked. Maya looked at her hands. I want her to understand what she did. Not just that she hit me, but that she yelled at me. That she made it my fault. That's not something the legal system does well, Nguyen said gently. I know. Nguyen leaned forward. There's another option. Restorative justice. A facilitated conversation. You, her, a mediator. She takes accountability. You get to speak. It doesn't replace the legal process, but it can run parallel. Maya thought about it. Would she agree to that? I don't know. But we can ask. That evening, Frank called a staff meeting. Everyone who'd been working the morning of the incident was required to attend. He set up chairs in the main dining area and stood at the front with Pete and Miss Pruitt. We're here to talk about what happened, Frank said. Not to place blame. Not to speculate. But to make sure we understand our policies and how we're going to move forward. He pulled up the diner's standard operating procedures manual. It was 30 pages long. Most people had skimmed it during onboarding and never looked at it again. Page 18, Frank said. Conflict resolution. Who's read this? 3 hands went up. That's a problem, Frank said. Because page 18 says that if a customer or staff member is injured, we stop service immediately. We separate the parties. We document everything. We call for help if needed. That's called Code Amber. And none of you knew it existed. The room was silent. That's on me, Frank continued. We didn't train you, we didn't drill it. We assumed everyone would just figure it out. And when something went wrong, we didn't have a plan. Pete stood up. Starting next week, we're doing monthly training. De-escalation. Bystander intervention. How to report an incident. How to support someone who's been hurt. And if anyone sees something that makes them uncomfortable, you report it. No retaliation. No questions. Miss Pruitt added, we're also implementing a zero-tolerance policy for physical altercations and verbal abuse. That applies to everyone. Staff, customers, management, no exceptions. Frank looked around the room. This isn't about punishing Kelly. This is about making sure it doesn't happen again. To anyone, Rosa raised her hand. What happens to Kelly? That's still being decided, Frank said. But whatever happens, it'll be based on policy, not emotion. The meeting ended 20 minutes later. People filed out slowly, talking in low voices. Rosa stayed behind to help stack the chairs. You think she'll come back? Rosa asked. Frank didn't answer right away. I don't know. But if she does, it won't be the same. Kelly sat in her apartment, staring at her phone. She'd been suspended for a week. She hadn't left the house except to buy groceries. She'd watched the video online and read the comments. Some people defended her. Most didn't. She kept replaying the moment in her head. The tray. The swing. The crack of impact. She hadn't meant to hurt anyone. But she had. And instead of apologizing, she'd yelled. She'd made it worse. Her lawyer had called that morning. There was going to be a formal investigation. There might be criminal charges. There might be a civil lawsuit. And there was a possibility if Maya agreed of a restorative justice session. What does that mean? Kelly had asked. It means you sit down with her and a mediator. You listen. You take responsibility. You apologize. It doesn't erase what happened, but it might help both of you move forward. Kelly had said she'd think about it. But the truth was, she didn't know if she could face Maya. Didn't know if she could sit across from her and admit that she'd been wrong. Not just wrong about the tray, but wrong about everything that came after. She thought about the way she'd yelled. The way she'd assumed Maya was overreacting. The way she'd tried to make herself the victim. She thought about the way Maya had looked at her. Calm. Steady. Like she'd already decided that Kelly wasn't worth the anger. That was the part that hurt the most. 2 weeks after the incident, the restorative justice session was scheduled. It took place in a neutral space, a community center 3 blocks from the diner. The mediator was a woman named Dr. Okafor. She'd been doing this work for 15 years. Maya arrived first. She sat in a chair facing the door, hands folded in her lap. The bruise on her cheek had faded to a pale yellow. Kelly arrived 10 minutes later. She sat across from Maya. Neither of them spoke. Dr. Okafor sat between them. Thank you both for being here. This is a voluntary process. The goal is understanding, not punishment. Maya, you'll have a chance to speak first. Kelly, you'll listen. Then we'll reverse. At the end, we'll talk about what comes next. Does that work for both of you? They both nodded. Dr. Okafor turned to Maya. Whenever you're ready. Maya took a breath. I grew up in that diner. I used to do homework in the corner booth while my dad closed up at night. I've served tables there. I've cleaned the kitchen. I've worked every shift there is. And I've never felt unsafe there. Not once. Until that morning. Her voice stayed even, but her hands tightened in her lap. You hit me. That was an accident. I understand that. But you didn't apologize. You yelled at me. You made it my fault. And when I told you who I was, you looked terrified. Not because you'd hurt me. Because you thought you were going to lose your job. Kelly's face went red. I don't want you to lose your job, Maya continued. But I need you to understand that what you did wasn't just physical. It was the assumption that I was the problem. That I was overreacting. That I didn't belong there. And I need to know that you understand that. She stopped. The room was quiet. Dr. Okafor turned to Kelly. What do you want to say? Kelly's voice cracked when she spoke. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hit you. But that's not an excuse. I should have checked if you were okay. I should have apologized right away. Instead, I got defensive. I got scared. And I made it about me. She wiped her eyes. I didn't think about how it looked. How it felt. I just reacted. And I was wrong. I was completely wrong. Maya didn't respond. She just watched. I don't know if you can forgive me, Kelly said. But I want you to know that I'm going to do better. I'm going to take the classes. I'm going to learn. I'm going to make sure I never do this to anyone again. Dr. Okafor let the silence sit for a moment. Then she said, Maya, what do you need from this? Maya thought about it. I need to know that this matters. That it's not just about me. That the diner is going to be a place where people are safe. All people. I can't promise that, Kelly said. But I can promise I'll try. Dr. Okafor made a note. Let's talk about next steps. The agreement was written up over the next week. Kelly would complete 40 hours of community service. She would attend a conflict resolution course. She would write a formal apology to Maya and submit it to the diner's HR file. She would remain on probation for 6 months. If there was another incident, any incident, she would be terminated immediately. Maya agreed to the terms. Frank agreed. Kelly signed. She came back to work 3 weeks after the incident. She worked the morning shift. She didn't speak to Maya. She didn't speak to anyone unless she had to. She kept her head down and did her job. Rosa watched her carefully. So did Pete. So did every other person in that building. But she didn't snap. She didn't yell. She didn't make excuses. She just worked. On the 1-month anniversary of the incident, Frank held another staff meeting. This time, it wasn't about what had gone wrong. It was about what they were going to do differently. He unveiled a new 10-point policy, printed on laminated cards and posted by every entrance. Zero tolerance for violence. Mandatory de-escalation training. Anonymous reporting line. Bystander intervention protocols. Medical response procedures. Non-retaliation guarantees. Monthly safety audits. Community accountability partnerships. Transparent investigation processes. Regular policy reviews. This is the standard now, Frank said. Not just for us. For any business that wants to do right by its people. He also announced a 12-month cultural audit. An outside firm would come in, interview staff, observe operations, and issue a public report. We're not hiding, Frank said. We're learning. The local newspaper ran a follow-up story 2 weeks later. The headline read, Sunrise Diner implements new safety protocols after assault incident. The article was thorough, fact-checked, and fair. It didn't sensationalize. It didn't vilify. It just reported what had happened and what was being done about it. Diane, the customer who'd filmed the video, was quoted. I've been going there for years. I'm glad they're taking this seriously. The article was clipped and pinned to the bulletin board inside the diner, next to the 10-point policy. Someone had written in marker at the bottom, "Timeline verified." On a Tuesday morning in late April, the diner reopened with new signage. A poster near the door read, "We are committed to a safe and respectful environment for all." A QR code below it linked to an anonymous feedback form. Rosa led a short training session before the first customers arrived. She walked the staff through a scenario. A customer becomes aggressive. What do you do? Who do you call? How do you protect the other customers? How do you protect yourself? Everyone knew the answer now. Code Amber. Separate the parties. Call for help. Document everything. Maya came in that morning as a regular customer. She didn't use her employee card. She didn't sit behind the counter. She sat in a booth by the window and ordered coffee and toast. Kelly took her order. She didn't smile. She didn't make small talk. She just wrote it down and brought it to the kitchen. When the food came out, she set it on the table and said, "Enjoy." Maya nodded. "Thank you." It wasn't forgiveness. But it was a start. By summer, the diner's complaint rate had dropped by 40%. Tips were up. Employee turnover was down. There hadn't been a single incident of violence or harassment since March. Frank met with Miss Pruitt to review the results. "It's working," he said. "It's working because you're paying attention," she replied. "The question is whether you'll keep paying attention when it's not in the headlines anymore." Frank didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I will." Maya drafted a memo that month. It outlined the 10-point policy, the training protocols, and the restorative justice process. She sent it to the 3 other diners her father owned in the region. 2 of them adopted it immediately. The third said they'd consider it. She didn't push. She just made the information available. Kelly completed her community service in June. She'd spent 40 hours working at a food bank, sorting donations and packing boxes. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy. But it was something. She didn't talk about it much. But one afternoon, Rosa asked her how it had gone. "It was good," Kelly said. "Hard. But good." Rosa nodded. "You gonna stay?" Kelly looked around the diner. "The booths. The counter. The grill. I don't know. Maybe. If they'll have me." "They will," Rosa said. "As long as you keep doing the work." Kelly didn't respond. But she didn't argue either. In August, the cultural audit was completed. The outside firm issued a 40-page report. It highlighted strengths: strong leadership, clear policies, engaged staff. It also highlighted weaknesses: inconsistent enforcement, gaps in communication, lack of diversity in management. Frank read the report 3 times. Then he shared it with the entire staff. "This is where we are," he said. "Not where we want to be, but where we are. And we're going to close those gaps." He hired a new assistant manager. Her name was Janelle. She was a black woman in her 30s with 10 years of hospitality experience. She didn't come in to fix everything. She came in to build on what was already there. The first thing she did was sit down with every staff member and ask them one question. What would make this place better? She got 20 different answers. And she wrote down every single one. By the end of the year, Sunrise Diner looked almost the same as it had in March. Same booths. Same menu. Same bell above the door. But something had shifted. Something quiet and unmistakable. The 10-point policy was still posted by the entrance. The QR code was still active. The training sessions were still happening every month. And the staff really knew that if something went wrong, there was a plan. Maya came in one Saturday morning and sat at the counter. Kelly was working the register. She looked up when Maya walked in. "The usual?" Kelly asked. Maya nodded. "Please." Kelly wrote it down and handed the ticket to the kitchen. She poured a cup of coffee and set it in front of Maya. "Cream?" "No, thanks." Kelly moved to the next customer. No hesitation. No awkwardness. Just work. Rosa watched from the grill and allowed herself a small smile. It wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was better. And better was enough. The bell above the door chimed as another customer walked in. The sunlight moved across the floor in long, golden stripes. The coffee machine hissed. Someone laughed at a booth in the back. The grill sizzled. And the diner kept serving. The policy card by the door caught the light. 10 rules. 10 commitments. Not because they were easy. But because they were necessary. A diner is more than a place that serves food. It's a place where people meet. Where they sit across from each other. where they share space, even when they don't share anything else. And if it's going to work, really work, it has to be safe for everyone who walks through that door. No exceptions. The bell chimed again. The light shifted. And Sunrise Diner kept its doors open.